Hi, my name is Becky Jennings, and this is the Response-Able Parenting Podcast. I give you the transformational tools to stop reacting to your children in the moment and start responding with intention.
Do you find yourself locked in a daily power struggle with your child? Do you fall back into old patterns like yelling or threatening just to stop the annoying behavior? Are you desperate to learn how to connect with your kids, set boundaries, heck, gain some cooperation? If this is you, you need to check out my community. Inside my community, you'll have access to my signature Strong-Willed Language course, where you learn how to regulate yourself, understand and speak your strong-willed kids' language to virtually eliminate the constant power struggles. You'll have access to my workshop library, giving you step-by-step strategies for sibling rivalry, listening, anger and aggression, emotional regulation, and more. You'll have weekly Q&A opportunities to get personalized answers on challenging situations. You'll get specific strategies for you based on exactly what's going on in your home. No umbrella strategy, no umbrella script, no bots. You'll get a personalized roadmap to support you. Plus, you'll get dozens of bite-sized lessons to regroup, stay on track, and stay motivated. It is time to stop walking on eggshells around your children and finally experience the relief you are looking for. Join the community today and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Response-Able Parenting. My name is Becky Jennings. I am your host. Today's a little bit of a tricky one. We're going to kind of dive into some harder stuff because I tend to notice this unspoken hiccup that I notice with a lot of my clients. And it's very subtle, but it's something worth noting. And I wanted to really talk about it today. And I know you're down for the challenge because you guys have been with me for over 80 episodes, which is blowing my mind. And I'm very grateful for you to be here. I'm also, this is like such a point for me to grow as well. Like every time I put thought into what I'm going to say, I end up reflecting so much that I show up as a better parent. So this podcast isn't just a tool that gives me a chance to talk and share and whatnot. It really allows me to up my parenting game, and it's kind of like a critical part for me. So thank you for always being a part of this journey. You are, as you go through this podcast with me, actually seeing a lot of my growth in real time. So just now, you are not, this is not like me being the expert and telling you what to do. Like you're watching my actual evolution in parenting as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being so generous. Thank you for sharing this with your friends. And truthfully, it does help if you write a 5-star review, and actually write some stuff. I'm still trying. And if you know how to do this, I cannot figure this out, but how to actually see the reviews. I see that there's a number of reviews. I just can't read them. And I would like to be able to jump in, and I would like to be able to choose somebody, and I would like to be able to give you a free month inside of my community. So if you know how to access the reviews, please let me know, because I've gone down the Reddit rabbit hole. I've read so many articles and I still can't figure out how to do it. So I'm just waiting for that guru to share with me how to do it. So this one's, like I said, going to be a little bit of a tricky one, but I have faith in all of us that we can get through it. So something I have picked up on, and again, I said it's subtle because it's just that's the hint of something. But what I've noticed with the parents that I work with is, especially if the parent grew up in a very rigid, authoritarian household, one that was like stuck in this patriarchal viewpoint, parents who didn't like consider, accept it, like having their child accept the punishment, parents who who just didn't care what your feelings were about the consequences. It made no impact on their parenting decision. It was kind of like that my way or the highway, or do as I say, that kind of household. If you grew up in that and you kind of swung your pendulum to the other side, And now you're validating your child's feelings. We're working on skill building. We are problem solving as a team. We're using all of these really magical tools, right? We're setting our kids up to be emotionally intelligent, like problem solving wizards. We are literally doing all of the things to create a secure and safe environment for our children. And we are overlooking a critical thing. I don't want to say it's wisdom from the past because I don't think it's very wise, but it is a step from the past that we're kind of skipping over. Our children will not ever outwardly show us acceptance of our gentle boundaries, right? They, eh, yes, all of these things, even though they're all securely attached and they're grounded, good stuff for our kids that are, especially, okay, by the way, and let's just put a little asterisk here, especially if our kids feel safe, especially if we've created an environment that our children are allowed to have a voice, they will push back and they will not validate our parenting. Okay. This is their development. This is their prerogative, right? Their developmental prerogative. Yet we take it personally when in fact it's developmental. So here's the rub. This is where it gets kind of tricky. And this is where we actually have to do a little bit more internal work than we think. Like we're doing all the good stuff. We're learning the tools. We're putting the systems in place. But we cannot expect our children to give us the validation that we need around our boundaries to know whether or not our parenting is effective. Period. Our boundaries, we base them in our shared family values. These boundaries can grow bigger or they can shrink depending on how our child chooses to operate within the value-based boundary system that we have created. It is our job after that, after we hold that sturdy boundary, it is our job to regulate our own emotions around the situation and not wait for our child's regulated emotions to show us whether or not we are on the right path. Oftentimes, I find, and my expectations have been this as well, that I will hold a sturdy boundary. I will do it in a loving, compassionate way. I will use empathy. I will validate. I will do the things. And in my brain, I say, this is deeply connected. My child is going to clearly respond in a connected way with a regulated nervous system. And they're going to say, thank you so much. That's exactly what I needed. Right? And if anybody's been there, you kind of feel that like, oh no, what do I do now? They're still pushing back. And that is when we need to say, okay. I'm doing the right steps, right? I need to take the pressure off of the situation. I need to take the expected response that I like have in my brain, this like beautiful, harmonious, expected response that I'm like hoping for, that maybe a book said would happen. This like beautiful, loving, connected embrace when my child pushes a boundary and I hold the boundary and they're like, you're right. It's just, especially if you have neurodivergent children, it's just not going to happen. My strong-willed child, not going to happen. My neurodivergent child, not going to happen. After the fact, after the heat of the moment, they might come back and, we embrace and we figure that out again. But we are doing the hard work. We know we're doing the hard work. We know we're breaking cycles. We know we're focusing on the steps that create a secure and safe childhood. And we know that our child from top to bottom is just one gigantic ball of feelings and emotions. They're like to the brim. They're endless emotions. They're operating on this like very thin tightrope where they can go from elated to like complete despair in the matter of seconds. There's no cognitive understanding. It's 100% emotion. So of course they're going to push back, even if we validate it, right? Of course they're going to push a boundary because they feel safe enough to do so.
Of course, they're going to express their dislike of what you just said because you're allowing them to have a voice, because we're creating this really safe space. We're creating a space that allows the exploration of the full spectrum of human emotion. Doesn't mean that's not triggering for us. Doesn't mean we haven't chosen the right path for us, right? We've chosen to step away from that like blinder on my way or the highway, this rigid, disconnected, to be seen and not heard mentality, right? We're switching away from that. Doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean it's not deeply triggering for us, because oftentimes what we're seeing our children being allowed to do is what we were not at all allowed to do. And so that's wounding, it's triggering. But we need to remember that the person in front of us isn't the original perpetrator from our past, and that we are actually creating an environment to allow this because we deeply wanted it when we were kids. So we're actually gifting ourselves a little bit of healing and gifting our child an environment that's not filled with shame, pain, and programming that we experienced. So that critical piece is dropping that expectation of what it looks like when we hold a boundary, when we give validation, when we use empathy, when we use a tool, when we repair. In our brains, we can conjure up the most magical image of what it would look like in our childhood if we were given that gift. And we cannot control the outcome of what happens in front of us. We can simply remind ourselves, oh, my child is doing that because I've created an environment that allows for the full range of human expression. This is them expressing that. It's not any which way having commentary on the sturdiness of my parenting. And I don't need my child to respond saying, thank you so much for your wisdom. I don't need my child to immediately stop crying and comply. I don't need any sort of external thank you or anything to know that what I am doing as a parent is valid. In those moments, we get to catch ourselves and we get to say, okay, my job is not to project my hopeful outcome onto my child. My job is to witness what I am seeing and soothe myself. That's what we're going to be doing a lot in 2025. We're going to be doing a lot of self-soothing. I think that's the theme of the year. Soothing ourselves, using the grounding practices that you've learned, using, the breath work, using the mantras, shaking the anger loose, using these grounding tools so that we actually expand our window of tolerance. So we have more capacity to deal with the discomfort in the moment.
When dealing with frustrating behavior, yelling can quickly become our default way of handling things. But since you're listening to this podcast, I know you're looking for a better way. That's why I created my free guide to help you get out of the yelling cycle. This 6-part free guide gives you the foundational information to start breaking the toxic yelling cycle. Click the link in my show notes to get your free guide today. This might be the hardest cycle to break as parents, but I have your back, and together we can change the way we respond.
I think we have done this amazing job. And by the way, no fault of ours. We're just really hopeful beings. And we have this really amazing ability to be optimistic in the face of a lot of stuff. I think where the pendulum kind of skipped over one little spot was that we were so hopeful that every response from our child would tell us and be proof and evidence that what we are doing is working. And we're hoping for that in the moment. And what I just want to calmly and gently remind you is that in the moment, we need to release all expectations. In the moment, that is not where we are going to see, these massive skills that we have been building, because our children are still 100% emotion.
They are emotion driven, emotion focused, and it is really hard. And we know this because we experience this too. It's really hard to use a skill when you are in the heat of the moment. It's really hard to use your I statements when you're fighting with your partner. It's really hard to go through nonviolent communication where you're expressing your needs, you're expressing your feelings, you're making a request, not a demand, when you are furious. We know this, yet we're hoping that our children reflect back to us that with an underdeveloped brain. So I want to just kind of help you release the expectation that any way that they respond shows you the success of your parenting. We need to stop looking to our kids and their responses in the heat of the moment as proof or evidence that we're on the right path in this parenting journey. Just know that the lessons are not going to be, you're not going to see the skills at the heat of the moment. You're going to see them in the beginning. And then if you're following the bell curve or the volcano up to the top, you're not going to see it at the top of the volcano when it's exploding, but you will see it at the end, back down at the ground. Okay, so let's just kind of take a beat and remember that everything that you are doing is really wonderful. You are creating a secure attachment. You are creating a home filled with connection. You are creating a safe environment. You are literally creating this harbor that your children can come home to and feel safe and express themselves. And with that comes their ability to push back, their safety in saying, in speaking, in using their voice and pushing against you. That actually might be your barometer. Maybe we switch it and we're like, ooh, they feel safe enough to say that to me. I'm doing an awesome job as a parent, right? Not they've got off the deep end. They're disrespectful brats. Like, I've created a safe enough environment for my child to express their fully normal human emotions. Good on me. Good job. So let's just take a second and remember that in the heat of the moment, that's not when we're going to get our validation from our kids. When we hold a boundary, that is not when they're going to say, thank you so much, you're right. It's after, it's later. And a lot of it is going to come from you knowing in your gut that you're trusting your inner wisdom. You're trusting the skills you're learning. You're trusting that compass because it is guiding you to where you want to be. And we need to stop looking at our children in the moment to be the validators of that. We need to look within for that. Okay. Thank you for joining me yet another week, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Response Able Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.